job seeking in the age of AI assisted development. Um, I would just like to say a big thank you to Jared and also to Phoenix for helping arrange me to come along and talk to you. Really keen to do this sort of thing. Um, a little bit about me. So, who is this guy? I'm George. I've got. It was rather disturbing to me. I realised this year I've got 20 years in digital, which is just an indicator of just how old I am. But I've done it throughout both the UK and NZ. I've primarily looked after digital platforms and product with a little bit of a smattering of operations thrown in as well. I've done it for some reasonably big businesses, so some boring financial services ones, some quite fancy crypto ones, and most recently AWS, as Jared said. Just to clarify, I'm not here to sort of talk or sell about AWS per se. And what are my interests? Well, I'm a big cat fan. You can't see it because I've just moved my camera, but I've got a cat tower in the corner. It's sadly bereft of cats at the moment, but there are normally three hanging around. I love video games. I have done for more than those 20 years in digital. I like kickboxing because that's what keeps me sane, and I love automation, both low and no code type tooling. So if you want to talk Zapier and Make.com and N8, I'm your man. I overuse emojis everywhere, in every slide, in every communication, in every Slack message. There's far too many emojis. I don't know why, it's just a habit. I just think they look cool. So you will see them throughout this whole thing. You may please connect with me on LinkedIn after this if you feel the need. That's my LinkedIn address there, or just search for George Rosier online. Cool, so let's get straight into it. The landscape, as you know it, is changing. And I would say in the last 24 months, it's changed at a pace that I have not seen in the last 20 years. But for the better, in my view. I am sure you're all very aware of all these AI-powered tools that are emerging, and they're kind of all over LinkedIn and everybody's talking about them. And it's becoming expected that you use them. And by that, I mean, I'm seeing more and more evidence that people are moving away from this idea of trying to detect if you're using AI in an interview to actually expecting you to use AI in a coding interview. That's obviously not standard, like that's not the rule, but it does seem to be an emerging trend. And I will cover in a minute what I think the opportunity here is. It isn't a threat. I would encourage you to see it as a huge opportunity. Try not to be nervous. You've put in a lot of time and effort as part of Dev Academy bootcamp. You may know other people that have been through it and have been successful. And I know it's a lot of effort. Full disclosure, my wife went through it in 2016, and yeah, it was a big tough gig, and she did really well. I want to linger on that last point. Your job isn't disappearing. It's just going to get really interesting. And that leads me on to my next point. So there's a whole bunch of these coding companions that are now emerging, and there will be more. Obviously, this is just a snapshot in time. Where are we? August 2025. It's changed so much in even 24 months. There will be more of these. But for now, you've got the likes of Amazon's Kiro. I'm going to embarrass myself now and just come clean. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's either Kiro or Cairo. I'm not 100% sure. We'll find out. I haven't actually asked that question. So we've got Amazon's, I'm going to call it Kiro. It's Kiro. AWS Kiro has just been announced. It's a code of VS. It's a fork of VS Code, yeah, it's plugged into the Claude, the Anthropic model. And I was just saying to Jared before you guys arrived, I'm actually got it running on my other screen there because I've been lucky enough to be part of the beta testing group. There is, of course, Cursor, Windsurf, GitHub Copilot, Lovable, and a whole bunch of other tools that are emerging. Like I say, you need only spend about 2 minutes on LinkedIn and you will probably be flooded with a deluge of them. If you spend any time on Reddit or on any of those subreddits, you will see lots of references to it. My biggest message to you is to bear in mind that they aren't replacing you, they should amplify you. I'll come on to the reasons why. But quickly, what do they do? Well, I think we all know they generate code nearly instantly, and it's somewhat disturbing how fast they can do it. You can use them to brainstorm. One of the features of Cairo. Did I say Kiro or Cairo? Anyway, okay, I'm gonna navigate around that one. The AWS function is it's actually got two modes. It's got a vibe coding mode and a planning mode. So you can actually um, collaborate with it to work out what features you want and what tests you want it to run, and basically develop all of the markdown files that would support whatever it is you're going to build, and then switch to vibe coding to build it. It'll help you debug and obviously optimize what you've got already. And again, yeah, it will help you with brainstorming, turning ideas into prototypes. But also importantly, it can handle some repetitive stuff for you. And this is where we start to like realize that actually what it can do is just take out the mundane bits and leave you to focus on the cool bits. In theory, the result is this will mean you get to spend more time on the fun stuff, which is architecture, problem solving, and like being creative, like working with a product team, working with a designer, and working in amongst your coding and engineering peers to create good outcomes that are scalable and resilient and secure. What else do these tools do? They make mistakes. They'll undo things that they've done. They'll get lost. They'll navigate to a folder that you weren't expecting. They'll get themselves into a tangle, and almost verbatim what Jared just said, they can drive you crazy. By way of an anecdote, I switched mid-project to Cursor, and it totally undid everything I did. I then switched to ChatGPT and got into an argument with ChatGPT about why it was trying to do something and then undo something and then get stuck in a loop. But this is where the opportunity lies to me. Before we come on to that, the democratization effect. So, as you know, coding requires a lot of effort. You need to learn a lot of syntax. We need to be wary of structures. We need to know what does what and why, and which things we do and we do not do for the various reasons. Now, what this has done is has basically evolved the need to understand more deeply business problems. And this is what I was talking about earlier. So it becomes less of a I'm at the coalface and all I'm doing is just doing what you've asked me to do, Mr. Product Guy or Mr. Designer Guy. Now you can actually be part of the solving the business problem. And it's really important to do that. It's really important to be part of that from as early a stage as possible. There is an unholy triumvirate of people in software development sort of teams, which normally centers around an engineering person, a design person, and a product person. So that triumvirate is generally what will achieve the outcomes that you want from a product perspective, or a business perspective, should I say. What this means is you can more effectively be part of that triumvirate. It means you can get involved in the system design and the architecture. So, as I said earlier on, it becomes less about mashing away at the keyboard and actually spending more time being very considerate about what makes scalable and resilient design. How are we building in security into this? What does it look like? What are the considerations? User experience. So, the customer, having the customer at heart, user-centered design, talking deeply with your design counterpart to understand what it is they're trying to achieve and why. All of that obviously falls into the sort of category of communication and collaboration. One of the things I see that these tools allows us to do is it breaks down a lot of the barriers and actually starts allowing us to have conversations on a playing field that's not necessarily level, but actually lets people bring ideas to the table and speed up the process. The last part I would say as well is you need to use these tools. So in doing, you need to learn how to prompt them and direct them effectively. I'm aware that I'm rattling through this reasonably quickly. So again, if you do have any questions, do yell, do wave, stick it in the chat. So the MVP to product pipeline. So if I linger for a second on one of my previous roles, which was with Phoenix in a crypto company, back in 2019. Um, One of the things as a product person is we get very excited about the idea of creating a thing. We love it. That's all. We're very driven to create stuff. And until now, unless we've come from a coding background, until now, obviously we've had to rely solely on engineers like yourselves to actually make the thing reality. Um, what this has done is it's basically allowed excited product managers to come up with an MVP. Yay! Isn't that awesome? Um, Putting aside for a minute that it won't be scalable and it probably won't be secure and it will be full of bugs. But now what we've got is a challenge where we go, cool, that looks nice, but how do we actually make this ready? So I keep saying resilient and scalable and secure. How do we make it production ready? This is the biggest kind of opportunity for you as engineers. In my view, this is where you can shine. This is where you can bring your expertise and your knowledge and your insight to bear. You don't go away. You're not no longer part of the process. You're very much part of the process to understand and bridge that gap between, cool, I've got this thing that it looks like it works. And I don't know if any of you have used Lovable or any of those tools, but it can make you quite a convincing product that on the face of it looks like cool. I dare one of you to put it into production and see if it stands up to lots of users using it all at once. I'd bet a coffee, at least a coffee and maybe a muffin on it. It won't handle it. So this is where your opportunity really starts to become real, right? It's to bridge the gap between I've got this cool flashy thing and it works when I use it versus we've got this awesome product and it works when 10,000 users use it all at once. So this is where you, as experienced developers, become invaluable. The way I see it is there's an evolution of the skills that still matter, and now they will matter more than ever. And it's system thinking. It also overlaps quite heavily into the architectural side of it, but it's understanding how all these pieces fit together. It's understanding how I don't know, a content distribution network fits in your overall stack. How are you handling registration, like user registration? I am. How are you going to ensure that all of your Lambda functions are running properly? Quality assurance, like what does good code look like? Good, like these products can spit out code at a rate of knots, as we've seen, but it might look beautiful, but is it actually good? That's a good question. I had it refactor a project of mine, and it looked fantastic. It didn't work, but it looked great. So there's the whole piece in there about understanding what makes good code. Security awareness. I've talked about this very briefly, but yes, resiliency, scalability, security. This is super important. Protecting your users' data and the system integrity. And this is a very deep rabbit hole that you can go down, but I think it's more important than ever now with these tools to be super aware of what this looks like and the considerations. Performance optimization. So, yep, same deal. I got it working on my computer and it works for me and it's fast. But what happens if I throw 10,000 people at it? What happens if I put it in an AWS region that's in Tokyo or US East, for example? What happens then? And then we throw loads of users at it. And team collaboration, I talked a little bit about this in one of the previous slides, but collaboration and communication is still, in my view, one of the most important skills. And it doesn't matter what your discipline is, whether you're an engineer, a designer, tester, product person, CTO, CEO, it doesn't matter. Collaboration is how we get this stuff done. And so working effectively like that and learning how to communicate in a way that everyone understands and that is to the point and considerate, I think is going to matter more than ever with these types of tools coming along. So how to position yourself. Quick show of hands, who's used one of these vibe coding or coding like assistants? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Everyone's giving it a go. Although I can't see Lana. I'm going to assume she's got her hand up. Um, yeah. Look, become proficient with them. Use them. Understand their limitations. Push them to their limits. Connect them to services, cloud services and that kind of stuff. See what they do. It's very easy to be negative about these tools and to look at them and go, ah, oh, it's just made a big mistake. No one's going to use that. Um, I was lucky enough to be around sort of at the beginning of when the internet moved away from, modems and that kind of stuff through to what it is today. And I remember when Google first came along, and everyone was kind of decrying the fact that, well, that's the end of schooling. Everyone can just Google it now. And actually, it turned out that that was not the case by a long shot. I see this as the same kind of evolution. Um, this will help you along the journey, but it doesn't necessarily mean it can do it flawlessly. Um, Highlight your problem solving abilities. This kind of flows on from the previous point. You can have some code generated or a feature created or an entire site made or an entire application made, but understanding where it fell over and what its limitations are, and then being able to fix it because you understand the code, it becomes more valuable than ever. I put myself still in the overexcited product person camp. I know enough code to be sort of dangerous, but I couldn't code it from scratch. I wouldn't be able to just sit there and just write something in Node. I can't write Python. I can pick my way through PHP and HTML, CSS, that kind of stuff. But really, I would be leaning heavily on these tools to actually do it for me. I know enough that I can just about unpick or realize when it's sending me down a path that's the wrong path. But lots of people will not. This is where your problem solving abilities and your skill and experience as engineers will lie. It'll be unpicking or productionizing these types of solutions for overexcited product people. That's how I see it. Um, you will obviously have been, developing a full understanding of the development lifecycle. That is to say, version control and testing and iteration and all those good things. Anyone can deploy anything, but it will probably be poo. That's the little subline there. It's true. So you need to understand how, when you're developing and deploying this stuff, how we can roll it back, how to spot the things that went wrong, and why. So that knowledge that you guys are developing as part of the likes of Dev Academy is invaluable, and it remains valuable in order to be able to continue working with these tools. Positioning yourself using these tools and showing examples of projects that you've taken from an idea to production is going to be really key. It's very easy, as I say, for anyone to just turn around and go, oh yeah, cool, look, I made this thing and isn't it great? And it works for one user. But if you can take examples of projects that you've done and they've actually got it live and it handles, plenty of users. Oh, and actually, by the way, I learned all of these things off the back of it. Oh, and now I've got this idea and I've seen that I can hang this service off it. And I've realized I can do this with that. That's where the gold lies. So from a hiring manager's perspective, what I look for is inherent curiosity. Sure, skill, that's cool. But skill isn't really anything if you're just sort of sat there going like I'm the greatest coder in the world, but I'm not particularly bothered about sort of pulling the thread of a problem or an issue that I've got in front of me. Curiosity is the key. And so if you can show that curiosity by taking projects, whether it's by yourself, whether it's a colleague or a team member or a friend, taking it from concept to production and showing what you learned along the way, that is gold. That is really, really appealing to hiring managers. And the last point, this is something that I've kind of lent on for a good portion of my 20-year career, which is your ability to work with those who aren't technical. Sure, these tools are a boon to people who aren't technical because they can just have an idea and just stick it into a prompt and all of a sudden they've got the next Facebook, they think. But the reality is when all that's gone away and it's fallen down and they actually need to figure out, how to productionize it and all that sort of stuff, your ability to communicate these concepts with those who are non-technical is going to really help you stand out. Um, I liken it to the ability to be able to explain it to my mum. And it's not because she is stupid, but she's not technical. And so I like if I can explain it in a way that makes sense to her, then I feel like I've won. That's a win for me. I'm not suggesting that you would treat every non-technical stakeholder like your mum, but just as a benchmark of how to kind of convert a technical concept into everyday language in a way that is meaningful and still gets the point across. That is gold. Excuse me. All right. Touched on it a little bit here, but we'll go over it again. What kind of projects would I be looking for? Well, ideally, one that solves a problem. I want to see that you've identified a challenge or a gap or an issue, and it could be with anything. It could be with whatever it is you do as a hobby. It could be with something in your last role. It could be, I don't know, like something else that you've just thought of off the top of your head. But clarity around the solution that you have developed to a problem that someone, a customer, is experiencing is best. Amazon prides itself on being one of the world's most customer obsessed companies, and I can vouch for that. Like having just this week, I'm coming up to my 1 year anniversary, they call it, and I've never worked anywhere where the customer is at the heart of absolutely everything that they do. That's really the kind of mindset that we're looking for here, is to go, you can build all sorts of cool stuff, excuse me, but if you're not solving the customer's problem, then it's just cool stuff for the sake of it. So understanding deeply what that customer problem is, and then creating something that works towards fixing it. That's great. Document it. Show how you found it. How did you come up with it? It might have even been in a discussion with a mate in a cafe. It might have been, from a previous job. It doesn't matter. But the point is, document it. Say how you found the problem. How did you ideate to come up with ideas and solutions? How might you approach it? Who did you work with? Did you have any developer, designer friends? What were the hurdles that you faced? Where are we going to host it? What are we going to build it in? But then also importantly, the learnings. Like, what did you learn from that? One of the most telling questions that I ask as a hiring manager is, and what did you learn from that? If I bolt that onto the end of a raft of questions that I've spoken prior, it's really very telling, and it gives you a very good insight as to the type of mindset that I'm talking to. So anyway, anything that showcases consideration for that process, and particularly security, scalability, usability. The reality is these are all very customer focused outcomes. We want people's data to be secure. We want it to work for lots of people, and we want it to be usable by lots of people. Also, these things are usually top of mind for businesses. So if you're developing a product for a business, or if you're interviewing for a business, these things are usually what they are looking for as well.
Hey, George, sorry, I have a question on
Sure,
that last slide, if that's cool.
sure.
So, with regards to scalability, if you're working to solve a problem for a client, and they have never really voiced any intention to upscale,
Mhm.
um, um, how much energy should you put in a real life scenario? How much energy would you recommend putting into scalability? Like, do you think it's always a good idea to have that in the back of your mind, or um, only bring it up if it's a thing, or
Yeah, it's a good question. If you're dealing with maybe a small or emerging business, perhaps NZ only, that kind of thing, scalability is probably not front of mind. And from your perspective, when you're building something, you probably don't need to be considering, tens of thousands of users concurrently. It's probably not a thing. I suppose the answer is it depends, which doesn't help. But if I expand on that a bit, what I'd be looking for as a so from your perspective, dealing with a customer like that, would be to at least talk around what their expectation is in terms of their total addressable market, like what they're expecting, what's their plans, what's their goals, and that really kind of like comes back down to the sort of the process of uh, working closely with your either your founding team, your engineering team, whoever it is, to actually understand what the point of the product is and what the goals are for it. Maybe it is an NZ only at the moment, but maybe ultimately they do want to go global. Maybe the founder hasn't thought about it, but the product has got a global appeal. It isn't limited to NZ only. Um, in terms of balancing, I suppose what you're getting at is like how much time do I want to spend trying to convince someone that I need infinitely scalable cloud resources versus something that will work in NZ, right? Yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act in as much as you have to have had the conversation to understand where they want to go with it. This is all about the kind of the roadmap, effectively. So if you're working with a founder or a product person, ideally they would have some kind of roadmap. And if they don't, then this is a good opportunity to kind of go, hey, we should think about what the 1, 3, 5 year plan is for this product. People don't generally realistically plan 3 years ahead. A 1 year plan is a pretty good plan, but that should give you a bit of insight as to how much we should be considering. The reality is a lot of these kind of cloud solutions, and it isn't just AWS. Obviously, there's plenty of others. Can You can build them in such a way that it's not too hard to scale across kind of different regions and that kind of thing. Does that answer your question? I think so. So to sum up, be part of the process from early on, understand the roadmap, and influence it. If it's looking like it's going to go global, then you want to kind of orient people in that kind of scalability direction.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that does answer the question. And also, another thing that I was kind of thinking about was like, if I was using an example, talking to a hiring manager, like of here's a client that I helped out with this project.
Mm.
If I was to say, security, we nailed it. Here's my evidence. Usability, nailed it. Scalability, we talked about it. They didn't care about it. Ultimately, so long as I can prove that we talked about it and I know that it's important, we just didn't happen to execute it. That's like still good.
Totally.
Yeah,
And I
cool.
think, by extension, you can kind of frame it like that. Say, yep, had the conversation, they weren't interested, or it was, a domestic only product, whatever. But as long as you can show, yep, A, consideration for it, and B, a bit of knowledge around like, okay, and if I was going to do that, or if it was going to go to Australia, or we did want to enter the US market, or whatever, then I would do it like this. We've chosen a specific provider that's got capability for that, or I've been busy learning how to kind of scale workloads in whichever platform or tool it is, such that if it comes along at some point, I can do it. Oh, and by the way, I spun up a region in US East 1 just to see what happened, and was the latency that bad, or was it manageable? Oh no, it's okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's really around like being able to show consideration and that you've tried some stuff. Yeah, because it's not applicable to every. We're not all running the next Google yet. Good question.
Cool.
Any
Thank you.
others? No. Okay. I'll keep going. Just yell out if you've got a question. Where did I get to? This one. Oh yeah. What employers are really looking forward to. This, I mean, look, honestly, this overlaps with the previous slide, right? Um, People who can think strategically. It talks to that whole idea of like, what's the roadmap? Where are we going? What's the intent for this in a quarter, 2 quarters, end of the year? But that's what we mean by strategically. So rather than just going, yeah, I'm just going to fix that thing, it's going, yes, but how does it look with lots of users? Communicating technical concepts clearly. Again, people who are non-technical, and even amongst yourselves, like I can't stress enough. I'm going to rewind. This isn't the Amazon show, I promise. But one of the things that we talk about a lot in Amazon is leadership principles. Um, has anyone heard of the Amazon leadership principles? Hands up if you have. Don't worry if you haven't. No? Okay. Amazon operates under 16 leadership principles. It was 14 and they bolted two on. But one of them is effectively about being truth seeking. So we kind of are very, very keen to have conversations in clear language that it takes ego out of it. That's the point. And the idea is that we're not here to sort of push an agenda. It's not about kind of one-upmanship. We're really just trying to find the truth of a particular matter or a situation. If you can communicate clearly amongst yourselves what a thing is and why it's good and what might make it better than another thing, that's really important. Don't overcomplicate it. There's no need. Keep it simple. Even when you're discussing deeply technical things, try and boil it down to the kind of the most basic language and concept because it helps everybody. Team players, important. We're all going to operate as a team. One of the things I value most is knowing that my team has my back if something happens or I'm not there or I'm off sick. Who can handle ambiguity. So I'm going to linger on that for a minute. One of the greatest skills that I've seen in developers and engineers are people who can take the idea that I want to, again, overexcited product person, I want to do a thing. And rather than getting hung up on all of the kind of like nitty gritty, because as soon as someone says, I want to build Facebook, you as engineers will be going, okay, shit, that means like loads and loads of users and loads of registrations and massive database. And how am I going to handle like all of their posts? Like, where am I going to store everything? Like, I mean, and all of a sudden, like we're going to go like that, down all these little rabbit holes. And I think it's important to kind of go, okay, I broadly understand what the thing is that you want to create. We can make some assumptions. We can clarify what those assumptions are. And I'm just going to go ahead and do some stuff. And if I run into something really critical, then we'll stop and we'll have a conversation about it. But the ability to kind of think more broadly about what the ask is and make some assumptions that are reasonable to achieve that. That's really, really important. It's quite common pitfall to get real hung up on the nitty gritty. And then there will be occasions where actually you have to get hung up on the nitty gritty. That's okay. But I think just more broadly, understanding that we can operate with ambiguity and we know broadly what we're talking about here. Okay, yeah, we can make some assumptions here. That's really, really important. And that will set you apart from someone who goes, oh, well, you haven't thought about this edge case, so I'm not doing it. And until I get an answer, I'm not doing it. It's like, no, just go with it, Professionals who understand business context, again, kind of comes back to that strategic thinking. Understand what it is we're trying to achieve. Typically, it's around servicing some form of customer. So what is it that we're selling? Why? What's important? Always having that kind of North Star is super, super key, like really important. And adaptable learners who embrace new tools. Well, that's kind of why we're here, right? Is to talk a little bit about how all these tools have emerged, and they can be looking a little bit kind of scary. But being adaptable is key. Again, putting my hiring manager hat on, I would favor somebody who I'm talking to and has told me, well, yeah, I was faced with this problem, so I went off and learned this thing to achieve that. Or I was in a team and my team member was away, they were sick or they're on holiday. And so I decided to take on the thing that they were doing just temporarily. And so I learned XYZ to do that. That adaptation is really, really key to be able to function as a team player and do all those other things, communicate those technical concepts, to work with ambiguity, all toward achieving a business outcome. It's adaptability, and that's really, really valuable. So if you can display that in a way that's meaningful, you're onto a winner, in my view. Okay, we're kind of covered this now. Um, but go and build as much stuff as you can. Use AI assisted things. Document where it went wrong. Document how you fixed it. Document how you prompted it such that it didn't make that mistake again. Um, I'm just going to pause there. A good example of something I did with it was either Claude or ChatGPT. I can't remember which one it was, but I found that actually one of the better ways of doing it was to go, all right, look, I'm going to get you to develop and like code up a feature. And once you've developed that feature, I'm going to have you write the README. And I want you to write the README in a way that can be picked up by another LLM without me doing anything. And so it did. And then I shut the session and I started a new one. And the first thing I said was, read the README. And it goes, cool, looks like you've got an awesome thing here. What do you want to do next? And I went, cool, I'm going to develop the next feature. And at the end of it, write the README. And as we go, it's funny because it's analogous with how we should be doing this for humans, right? Which is we want to document stuff. We want to document it in a way that makes sense and it can be picked up by someone else and then worked on without any, too much of a hassle. It's the same. And if I think about that feature that I was talking about with Kiro, it's going to be Kiro now. The feature with Kiro, whereby there's a planning session, sort of session that you can be in, and the vibe coding session, it's the same. You don't just jump into like a whole engineering team creating something with no spec. Sure, work with ambiguity, but not an entire team just all going hell for leather. Like it's not that. And so that tool has kind of it's been developed such that is analogous with how humans develop code, and the output is better for it. So basically, you vibe code the spec first and have it write out all the tests and essentially the readmes for all the features, and then you switch and you go, right, now build that. So build with these AI tools, figure out how to get the best out of them. Make note of what actually didn't work very well. Like, where did it go wrong? Oh, it's because I gave it 0-shot prompt. Make a thing. Well, it's just garbage. But if I'm much more specific, if I act with intent, then we get better results, right? And again, analogous. Show the full journey. So again, just describe how you did it. Like, what did you do? How did I get from the idea to production? Be clear about how you collaborated, like who did what went well, what didn't go well, which bits were quicker, what did you actually spend longer doing? Did you spend longer untangling Claude, or did you was the oh, doggo, who's that? Sorry, I'm gonna make you come off mute.
His name's Jerry.
Oh, hi Jerry. Oh, so cute. Sorry. Yeah, so look, where was the bottleneck? Maybe it was with your design function. Maybe it was the product person. Maybe it was with test. I don't know. But document it and demonstrate the learning. That's the next part. Is like, okay, actually, we realized that this bit was really sped up, but this bit fell over. And just be clear on what the impact was. So ideally, we're doing this because we want to solve real problems for real customers. Invariably, there's a customer at the end of all of this stuff. So explain how you did that. What was the result? How much money did you make? How many lives did you change? Whatever it is the outcome is that you're looking for, document it. That is broadly the end of it. So without further ado, a whole shed load of emojis. Over to you. I'd love to hear your questions, thoughts, comments. Daph.
Sorry, I've just got a quick question actually. I was wondering, because I love that idea of also documenting like your struggles and the things you learn in that journey. I think that's really important, and that's how you like remember stuff as well. But it's like one thing, I find it's one thing to document that in your own style and like a personal project, but professionally speaking, like how do you recommend that people document these sort of moments where they like learn a lot of stuff, and it might not be something that's like in documentation for a project, but like where does it live?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Somewhat unhelpfully, it does depend. But what I would say is like if you are in an interview type scenario, it doesn't matter. Like it's part of your learning. In terms of more formal documentation, I've seen like lessons learned sections in documentation in the past. That's totally cool to add. Sometimes this is an appendices, or we tried this and it didn't work, just to kind of give people the sense of, should you be coming to do I don't know, a new feature development or whatever, don't do this because we tried it and it fell over. I've seen that. I used to work for Lightbox before it got bought by Neon. So 2016 till 2018, I worked for Lightbox. I was the product manager. I looked after Android, smart TVs, and console app. And yeah, we maintained a whole heap of documentation in Confluence. And one of the parts in there was a lessons learned component. I'm not saying everybody does, but yep, that's kind of how I would do it. But really, document it how you like. I don't want to make assumptions, but I'm going to guess you either early career or about to head out into trying to find roles. And so yeah, just doesn't really matter as long as you can communicate it. It's okay. Yep. Good question.
Thanks.
I suppose I have a question. First of all, thanks for the presentation. It was really good. My question is more around sort of the adoption inside a large organization of AI. So with your work and your day-to-day, what does that kind of look like? Do you sort of, are you limited by the scope of the business, or are they kind of encouraging you to, like, for instance, with Kiro, pick it up and just be like, have fun?
That's a really good question. How do I answer this? I'll take a little step back. So my role previous to AWS was with ASB Bank. So I was there for 3.5 years or so. I looked after SRE, which is site reliability engineering teams, and so more on the kind of like digital infrastructure than it was like front end coding. One of the things that they were heavily invested in is like a move to Microsoft. So they were wholly a Microsoft shop. So they were completely invested in moving to Azure, all the Microsoft Office, everything that came with it, SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, everything. And one of the early signs that things had sort of slightly gone off the rails was that all of a sudden we had access to Copilot, which in 2022, I think, was kind of like mind-blowing at that point, right? They then very quickly unwound all of the access to that because the security teams were just sort of losing their minds. Why I'm telling you this is because quite often there is tension between the business and the people in the business trying to do stuff, right? So in this case, the security teams just went, oh my God, like everyone's using, and they're copy pasting all sorts of stuff into it. And so they had to lock it down. So quite often that tension is very real. I would say, so what was the question? How is it deployed and developed in a business? Was that more it?
I suppose it was kind of like, what's your experience with whether or not you're using it, and whether or not the business encourages you to do so.
Yeah,
so obviously
got it.
The security side of it is a big factor in that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I got lost down my own rabbit hole there. Yeah, basically, I'll switch to AWS now. AWS is all in on AI, Gen AI, LLMs, encouraging people to create their own. We see it permeate throughout all aspects of our daily lives. At first, it was sort of tentative, which was hilarious when you consider that Anthropic is, sort of been heavily invested in by Amazon, and internally the tools available to us were not as advanced as the commercially or retail available. I could just go to Claude.ai and just sign up immediately on my home computer, and yet what I could do internally was restricted. Now though, we see all the security teams and infrastructure teams have kind of gotten their act together, and we see it permeating everywhere. It's in browser extensions. There is specific LLMs internally available to do stuff. There is. Do you use AWS? Have you used any AWS services or anything like that before?
I made an account to tinker, but I haven't gone that deep with it yet. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's cool. So next time you log into the console, have a look on the top right-hand side. There's a little Q. That's Amazon Q. That's an embedded LLM that is basically plugged into all of the documentation to do with every AWS service. You can ask it things. And so I was just messing about with it the other day and just going, oh, I'm trying to do this with CloudFront. And it just went away and thought about it and gave me the answer. So it's being developed and deployed for both customers and internal people. So yeah, very much all in. Took a little while to kind of, hit its stride. And I think we're probably just about getting there now. But yes, it's everywhere. And you're encouraged to use it, obviously within the guardrails of things like PII and data classifications. You're not meant to put, customer information in these tools, or a very limited subset that have been approved for use with that. But yeah, you're encouraged to use it every day. And I'm the Gen AI point of contact for the New Zealand site, so I'm big into the idea of pushing it because it's part of my MO. But no, it's been really cool to see it sort of emerge finally as a usable tool. When I started a year ago, it was, I wouldn't say unusable, but unreliable. Now that is changing a lot. And one last point on that, Amazon Q Developer, that plugs into VS Code, it plugs into Terminal. It's really very good. Give it a go.
Cool. Thank you.
Did that answer it? I was a bit rambly there, sorry.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I suppose like you touched on the fact that a lot of interviews used to be sort of cautious of whether or not you're using, they measure your activity to be like, oh, your cursor's gone off the, screen, to be like, okay, well, you're using AI. So I suppose, just trying to get a gauge on what the industry's expectation is on the usage. And I think sometimes when it comes to interviewing and the actuality of a job itself, like sometimes they'll get you to do, data structure and algorithm questions, and then that's not even a big part of the business or what you'd be doing day to day. So
Totally.
That's kind of just where my mind was with that one.
Absolutely. My advice to you is if you're going for an interview and it's if they're going to cover anything that is, even mid-range technical or deeply technical, or going to then want you to do some sort of coding exercise in the interview, clarify as early and as clearly as possible whether or not you're okay to use AI tooling in it. And I can't talk for everyone because I don't know, but if you don't get that answer, I wouldn't use it because it's very obvious when people use it.
Yeah. No,
and
fair.
like I say, every business is different, right? So some people that might be like, look, I can see both sides of the coin. One business says, do not use it. I want to know your actual coding ability. I want to know how well you understand the structure and the language and the considerations and so on and so on, which is all totally right. And then the flip side of the coin is, I want to see how you use all these coding tools to 10x your impact and generate value for my business. It just depends. So ask, just ask. Yeah. Good question. I love it. Good questions.
Thanks.
Yeah, anyone else?
I kind of maybe a more long-winded question or a weird question. Just kind of being online and some people around me, you kind of, in one ear, you have people that are very pro AI, vibe coding, doing a lot of projects with AI, making a lot of things. And the other ear, I have some friends who have been in the business for a while, and they're very negative to AI because it's a lot of time for them to go over other people's code. They're doing a lot of, code reviews and finding it quite aggravating how much slop kind of people don't seem to see in their own code. How valuable do you think it is to develop the skills to poke holes in other people's code where maybe they've missed some weird kind of generation, versus kind of pushing what you can make and perhaps not learning those skills in favor of kind of pushing the envelope on what you can make?
That's a good question. Annoyingly, I would say, can I choose both? So the reason I say that is because I think it's very easy to fall into a mindset of it's all crap. Like there's nothing about it is good. It's all slop. Everything is a mess, and it's garbage. And that may be right for a whole portion of it. And we were talking about like how you prompt, how you build, how you project manage these sorts of things can actually influence these outcomes. I think it's important to be able to understand the code that's written such that you can debug it, because that's where your value lies, right? You're going to see more and more of this stuff in your professional life, broadly, whether you like it or not. And we can rage against it, or we can kind of go, right, this is the status quo. How can I add value to this? And like I say, it's the overexcited product person who's just built a thing again. This will happen a lot, but where you get to add the value is to go, cool, that is a great idea, and I see what you've done there. That's awesome. There's a glaring security hole here, so we need to fix that. Oh, and you probably want to consider refactoring this, because actually there's a whole shed load of old code and some old test stuff. There's loads of things that's commented out. All sorts of all of that sort of stuff is inherently valuable, and that's where a lot of your value will come as engineers. And then the flip side to it is you need to understand how to leverage these tools to 10x yourself. And the other thing I would say is I too hear a lot of people who are, they're getting really, really annoyed with what this sort of tooling creates and how they have to unpick it, and it's really, mind blowing for them. It's not going away. That's the message. And the other thing is, it'll get better. So whether it's as big a problem or becomes a smaller problem as time goes on, it's still a problem, and there's still value in what you all bring and what you are learning and how you are bringing yourselves to market as professionals. So slightly annoyingly, I think it's actually in both camps. So it probably doesn't answer your question.
That's a good perspective to have. I think it is good to have someone give you kind of a sanity check when you've been writing a whole lot with AI and can't necessarily keep all of it in your own scope. So it is good to have people be like, I think you've missed quite a lot here, or there's a security hole, or I think if you wrote this yourself, you'd write it better. Is sometimes a
Absolutely.
good voice to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I bear in mind is, and it was like I said, right, this is not going anywhere. So I would implore you to keep on top of it. As engineers and as professionals, it's a bit like the evolution of web design. It has moved from all being hand coded and whatnot, and then back in, I can't even remember when it was now, 90s sometime, we had Microsoft Front Page, which was a sort of disgusting mashup of HTML and Word, which you may all be too young to remember, but it was awful. But that had the same critics, which was, that's not HTML. It's just full of nonsense. It's just Word trying to do HTML. Now I've got to unpick it all. And the reality was sometimes you had to completely rewrite it. Same with this. But then time moved on, tooling moved on, and we got the likes of Flash, which thankfully has gone and died in a ditch, and Dreamweaver, which was a much more kind of like visual coding, sort of GUI, and then now we've moved more into IDEs. All of these tools evolve. They evolve over time, and staying on top of them and with them and relevant, that's the trick. Stay with it.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm old enough to have used Dreamweaver, and that's a good story actually, because I mean, I'm as kind of like spooked as anyone by the rise of AI and stuff, and these new tools. But when you put it into that perspective, where it's just another kind of like another step in that direction, and like web developers didn't all disappear overnight just because some teenage idiot could suddenly make their own band website. Um, so that yeah, that's a good perspective. I appreciate that.
It's the same with oh, I can't remember who I described it to as, but it's like cars. You know, they started off as sort of steam powered things, and then Henry Ford came along, and then we had, you know, the rest of the automotive era, and now we have electric cars. They're all oriented around the same thing, which is getting people from A to B. It's just that the old ones were slow and clanky and messy and smelly, but you could fix them with a hammer. Now they are fast and quiet and comfortable, and if you take a hammer to it, it's gonna explode. But it's just it's the same customer focused outcome, but just getting us there in a different way. Awesome.
Just a time check. We are at 7:30, and that's what everyone kind of signed up for. I'm happy to stay on the line if people have still got juice, but
I've got time. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Jerry came off mute.
Oh, pulled out. I suppose, yeah, I did have another one which was sort of around the frequency and rate that these tools are coming out and how sometimes it can be quite overwhelming to keep on top of things. Like I'm in one Discord channel and there's 3 channels dedicated to new tooling between OpenAI, Anthropic, and all of these other companies, and it's every day it pings. So what's your sort of best case for trying to learn new tools or trying to like weed through what's relevant and what's not?
It is. I agree. It's hard. Even as someone who I try and keep on top of the sort of the bulk of the tooling that at least impacts my professional life in some way, and it's hard. I think the best advice I could give you is to, and it was I talked about it in one of these previous slides. Just remain curious. The best kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The best discoveries I think I've had. That is to say, oh, I tried like you know, I've discovered a tool that I thought was actually just really amazing, and I don't think I could live without it. Best discoveries I made are ones that I was just like, oh, I'll just try it. I'll just connect that to the IDE and just see what it does. A good friend of mine and I are developing a sort of automation side hustle, basically. And one of the things that he did that I encouraged him to do it, but it has just reaped so many benefits was he went off and plugged in Claude code into I think he plugged it into, it was either Cursor or a different IDE, I can't remember, and then using an MCP has connected it to a bunch of other tooling, and now it's tooling aware and can answer questions that we just type and say, make me a thing, and it'll just make a thing. Discovered wholly by accident. He installed it on his home server. He just spun up the MCP. Didn't really know what it was doing. Excuse me. Sort of janked his way through, like managing to sort of connect it. Now we lean on it daily. And so I suppose the message is remain curious. Just give it a go. Like if there's a free trial, download it, see what it does, give it a kick. If it doesn't work, uninstall it. It's fine. But honestly, a lot of the sort of the discoveries of those types of tools that have really changed like my life, generally professionally, but also in that particular use case, complete accident. And it was just by being curious. So it is hard to keep on top of it. And I do think like back on that, whatever it was, second slide, I think it was this one. No, the one there. This 24 months, man. Like the last 24 months have rocketed past at a rate that I've never seen. And the way to keep on top of it is just give it a go. Just try it. Make a free trial. Use a fake email address. Doesn't matter. Just give it a go. Some of the stuff you quite quickly will go, oh, that's garbage. And other things you'll go, oh, hang on a minute, that was good. And then on we go. So yeah, things like MCPs and all that sort of stuff, just try it out. Plug it into a system or a service that you want to use, see how it goes. I recommend it.
Cool. Thank you.
Curiosity. Anyone else? Okay, I think that's us.
This is not a question, it's just a kind of a supporting idea. So if you are talking to the audience here, not George, if you are looking to lean into the collaboration and communication kind of side of what we've been talking about here, and just to be able to demonstrate some more teamwork stuff, I do highly recommend just finding a group of other grads and just working on a project together. Daph, who just unfortunately had to leave just now, and I have been working on a project for the last few months. We've been learning a lot about, yeah, just collaboration and like divvying up tasks and how to not do things largely next time and stuff like that. And it's more fun, and I find it a richer experience working with someone else rather than just trying to grind through something yourself. And I think kind of looking back at some of those slides, I think it might be quite valuable to document that process. And if you're looking for some people to collab with, just like put your hand up in the Discord server. So I think you'll find someone. Cool. Yeah. So just a quick plug for the Discord server, I guess. All right. Cool. So yeah, George, do you have any like closing remarks, or shall I?
No,
Yeah.
look, I think that's it. Just remain curious. I think that's the message. Remain curious and yeah, document everything. Yeah, but it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to me talk. Thanks for the questions. Really great. Love it.